Hey friends, welcome to day 2 of Inktober 2018. Inktober? MERMAY! Oh, welcome to MERMAY, day 2. That just slipped right off my tongue, so, that's where I'm at, I guess. I'm really still into it. I cannot believe how simple that came off. I haven't said that since October last year. Like, how is that in my memory? Maybe that's a good way to segue into one of my tips today. Muscle memory in your hand. I don't know if you're aware of this, but a lot of the time you're drawing, you're actually helping your brain create those neural pathways to remember the kind of action of drawing. Like, your wrist is kind of taking that in, your fingers are kind of taking that in, even your arm and your shoulder and your elbow. The way that you move as you're drawing becomes muscle memory. So that's something to consider when you're illustrating, and that's why practice is a good thing, because the more you do it, the more used to it you get, the more that it starts to feel natural, and that's got a lot to do with the fact that your brain is remembering those kind of motions that you do with your hand and your wrist, and how often you do that. It kind of builds it in, and you know when you've come to do a face, you've got that kind of muscle memory down. So I do want to say that it's very, very important to practice for that reason if you're looking to get more comfortable drawing the stuff that you already know. If you feel like you're getting to a place where you're really enjoying something, but it's very hit and miss, and you want to make sure that it's more hit than a miss, it might have to do with the muscle memory that's not totally in your body yet. So that's why I think repetition is a good thing. That's why I think these challenges are a good thing, because you're doing something 31 times over, it's going to start building that kind of memory in your muscle, and you will just get used to doing it. It's why certain people illustrate a very certain way as well. Like, there's a certain curve that I do. I think I've talked about this before, but this certain sweeping S curve that is just in my body the way it is, and if I try to do it on the paper in any other kind of way, I find that I don't have the same results. But as long as I've got the paper at this certain angle and my wrist goes this certain way, I know that I can get that result. I know it sounds super dumb and super simple, but it really does make all the difference when you're looking to become more confident in knowing that you can succeed at your drawings. So just a tip, if you're out there looking to become a bit more comfortable with your illustrating, maybe working on your muscle memory is something to look forward to. The thing I also want to say is that, like, it doesn't have to be full on pieces. You don't have to draw the same face 45 times to get that muscle memory in there. It might just be drawing the shapes of the face. So if your face is very circular, like the ones here, when you're warming up, you're warming up your wrist, you're warming up your fingers just by doing like a page of doodles or something, just draw the shapes that you're constantly drawing. So for me, I like to draw a lot of circles, I like to draw a lot of leaf almond shapes, I like to draw a lot of sweeping S curves, and some very, very straight lines on a diagonal from, how do you say that? It's literally on the hip of that first mermaid. It's tilted towards the top right. That's just the diagonal that I'm comfortable with. And like, it's so funny because if I need to draw the diagonal the other way, I don't turn my wrist, I turn the paper, so that essentially I'm still drawing the same diagonal. I don't know, I like to draw in strokes from top to bottom. My wrist is just comfortable with that. Sometimes I'll, change it up. I'll just go with whatever feels natural, but for the most part, if you were kind of mapping out the way that you did something, you'd kind of quickly come to know that your body has already got certain ways it likes to do something. So maybe just have a think about that. If you're noticing that some of your illustrations are that you really, really enjoy them, but you can't constantly get that, it might have something to do with muscle memory. Not quite sure. Also not an expert, so I would be taking everything I say with a grain of salt. I just know what works for me, and what has worked for me is repetition, and I believe that it is because of muscle memory. And the reason I say that is because my hand got very, very sore after this. I actually didn't warm up before I did this, so I found that some of my lines were a little off, some of them were a little flatter than I wanted it to be, like not as round as I needed. I find that pattern work is kind of a good way to warm up your muscles anyway, but by the time I did the pattern, that was the end of the illustration, right? The faces is what I should have done last if I was waiting for my hands to be warmed up. But this is a very, very fine gel pen. It's a Muji 0.25. So it's also a hexagonal barrel, which I love. It's fun to look at, but it really doesn't feel great in your hand. I would recommend maybe getting a gel grip, which I might have to do because my hand got so sore after this. It's just a lot. Like, it felt like I had RSI by the end of it. But maybe I should have used a thicker pen when I did the patterns, but I love how hairline thin this line is. So I'm not totally regretting it. My hand is just a little sore. Also, I didn't warm up beforehand, so it's probably half my fault. When you go to the gym, you don't just go straight onto the treadmill. You do a bit of ankle rolling. You do a bit of stretching out of the calves. Obviously, I would know because I'm at the gym all the time, obviously. I think it's important to take a bit of a theoretical approach to art sometimes. I don't love to get into art history. I mean, I appreciate it, but it's not something that really floats my boat. But I do like thinking about the way, people grow in their artistic approach. I like thinking about, very, very logical things, very things that just seem to make logical sense. And muscle memory for me as a dancer was a big reason why I felt very confident as a dancer, because every time I would learn a routine, I would do it really, really full out as I was learning it, so that my body could get used to all those movements and shapes, so that by the time I actually had to perform it, by the time I had to perform it, it wasn't foreign to me. It felt natural, it felt good, it felt familiar. And so drawing is not any different. The muscles in your hand are just as much muscles as anywhere else in your body. So it just kind of stood to reason to me that if I could build that familiarity in the muscle memory of me drawing, then I would reap the benefits from that. And so I really do believe that that's something that might help you. If what you're thinking is like, well, why would you need to do something over and over and over again? I already know how to do it. That means that your muscle memory's there. Maybe try working on something else. Maybe there's a specific something else that you might want to work on, because that's great. Let's be real. Sometimes you can nail something the first time you do it. Sometimes it takes you a few attempts, but you can get the hang of it. You can actually get there. But I would encourage you to keep pushing the boundaries. And just because you can do a sweeping S curve with a gel pen does not mean you can do it with a paintbrush. I learned that the hard way. When I first started diving into mixed media, I felt very competent as an illustrator for what I wanted to be illustrating. I'm not saying that it was, it was anatomically correct. I'm not saying that I had any hint of realism going on in my drawings, but for what I wanted to create, I felt very confident until I picked up a paintbrush and started trying to paint it. And then I picked up a brush pen and I thought, all is over in the world. Let's just call it a day. I'll never draw again. Because it's very different even if you use different types of pen, like if the flow is different, if the pressure needs to be different, if the barrel in your hand doesn't feel great, it's all going to start affecting the way that you approach your work. So I would encourage you that if you're already feeling super confident with maybe pencil, because pencil I think is one of the easiest ones. There's a resistance that the pencil has on the page that actually feels better for you to nail your drawings with. So I think pencil is one of those things that I would encourage you to start with if you're looking to build up some of that muscle memory, then move on to pen, and then once you're getting more comfortable and you're nailing things with pen, maybe move on to a brush pen or a liner brush. Don't move on to a liner brush. That's crazy. It's really difficult. And I'm still struggling so much with the liner brush, but it's fun. It's really difficult to use. But maybe just move on to a regular paintbrush and see if you can't start building that into your muscle memory, because the idea of learning is, you're opening yourself up to more opportunity, right? So you just want to make sure that you're feeling confident, you're feeling comfortable moving forward. And I really do think that keeping in the back of your mind that a lot of what you're building on, even if you're not succeeding in your illustrations, is that muscle memory, and one day it's really going to come into play for you and you'll really start enjoying the benefits of having practiced so much. So that's all I'm going to say for today. I feel like I've rambled on about 2 billion things and made sense of none of it. But until tomorrow, thanks for watching. Bye.